hit like, and subscribe. You're watching the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel.
Peace, family. This is your brother, Marc Lamont Hill. Welcome to the Marc Lamont Hill official YouTube channel. We are here tonight at a special time to talk about this extraordinary, unusual situation going on with Shannon Sharpe. For those that don't know, and I can't imagine that you're in this room to hear about Shannon Sharpe if you don't already know what's going on with Shannon Sharpe, but I will lay out the context. And the context is earlier this week, Shannon Sharpe was accused of sexual assault, and he was sued civilly for $50 million. As of now, the entire legal proceeding is a civil suit. There are no criminal allegations filed. There's no police investigation moving forward as of now. But this is all earth-shattering news to a lot of people. At the beginning of the week, Shannon Sharpe was having a fairly ordinary life. He was starring on Club Shay Shay, which is his own platform, or a platform that he operates. I don't know his ownership interest, so I just don't want to speculate. He was on First Take, of course, as a frequent panelist, or maybe the most popular one on the show outside of Stephen A. Smith, I would argue. He is on the NFL, ESPN's NFL coverage. He does all the things. And on Sunday, a woman in Nevada filed a lawsuit accusing him, Shannon Sharpe, of raping her twice in Las Vegas in October and one more time in January. I'm just giving you a little bit of background context so that you understand. According to this woman who identifies as a Jane Doe, she was 19 years old in 2023 when they met. They met in Los Angeles in a gym. And they had what she defines as a quote unquote rocky consensual relationship of nearly 2 years. She says during that time, Shannon Sharpe was frequently aggressive, frequently sexually assaulted her, and engaged in other activities that she obviously found traumatic and disturbing. This is all based on the civil complaint that was filed in Clark County. And it has been, since Sunday, story after story, leak after leak, all kinds of stuff happening. And, one of the most recent pieces of news, of course, is Shannon Sharpe making an announcement that he is going to step down from ESPN, not permanently, but that he is going to temporarily step away from the job to address these issues, the lawsuit, the speculation around the lawsuit. It's also important, before I, post his statement, to say that every allegation that's been made against Shannon Sharpe in this case, he has denied. He's called them false, unequivocally. He has vowed to defend his name. He has vowed to affirm the truth of his comments. And he's been very, very clear about that. He called her comments false and disruptive. So that's the backdrop. And there's some things I would probably stipulate, but we can talk about that in just a moment. But I want to bring up Shannon Sharpe's statement, which is what prompted me to come on at 1 a.m. to talk about this, right? Let's look at Shannon's commentary. Shannon is not exactly a OG or a master. He is an OG, and as an OG, I don't think he quite this wasn't the best way to post to make a statement on social media, but just technically, but that's beside the point. He said, "My statement is found here, and this is the truth. The relationship in question was 100% consensual. At this juncture, I am electing to step aside temporarily from my ESPN duties. I will be devoting this time to my family and responding and dealing with these false and disruptive allegations set against me. I plan to return to ESPN at the start of the NFL preseason. I sincerely appreciate the overwhelming and ongoing support I have received from my family, fans, friends, and colleagues. Shannon Sharpe." So that's a lot. And of course, the question is, what's really going on here? What's at the core? Why would Shannon Sharpe step away? And should this stepping away make us think about his innocence or guilt in any different fashion than we did before he made the statement? Let's unpack it. About 2 days ago, before Shannon made the statement, maybe even more than that, and certainly the same day that he made the statement, I heard multiple rumblings. I spoke to someone at ESPN, an insider, someone in a position to know. No, it was not Stephen A. Smith. It was not an on-air talent that told me this. I spoke to someone who said that they were not anticipating him to come back, that it had sort of been decided by the higher ups that Shannon Sharpe was not coming back to ESPN, that they weren't going to allow him back. And there's a precedent for that. We've seen ESPN fire people for much less controversial stuff, like Paul Pierce with that Instagram Live, or we've seen people like Michael Irvin who had serious allegations, just allegations. We're not talking about convictions. We're not talking about things proven, just allegations. We've seen them take it off air and not to return. So all of this is part of the conversation, right? ESPN was not planning to allow Shannon Sharpe back, according to my sources. Now, my sources could be wrong, or ESPN could have made an about face, or Shannon Sharpe is attempting to stop what many people feel is inevitable by saying, "Hey, I'll walk away myself." Because if I wait for them to tell me to go, they're not going to tell me to take a break. They're going to tell me to leave. I think it's complicated, though. Shannon Sharpe isn't like Michael Irvin. Shannon Sharpe is a unique and rare talent. Shannon Sharpe was the most rising of rising stars in 2024 in media, and not just Black media, just media. So I could see that ESPN may say, "Hey, if we can find a way to salvage this, we will. We're not going to amputate this leg. We're going to hold on to it, even if we got to do PT for a year or two. We're going to do something to hold on." So it's all possible, right? But for now, Shannon Sharpe works at ESPN. Now, this could be a face-saving gesture for everybody. ESPN may not want to fire him, and he may not want to get fired. He may want to step away and decide just not to come back and just kind of tip on out at the NFL. Or he could come back and be on NFL preseason. We'll get to that. To me, his media career at ESPN isn't the biggest or most important part of the story, but it's just the most recent data point that we have to sort of analyze. But when I think about Shannon Sharpe and him, doing this, I'm thinking, wow, what's really going on here? One thing that makes this complicated is ESPN isn't just interested in whether or not he's innocent or guilty. They're not. This is Disney. This is a Disney company. They're very interested in how it looks. And unfortunately, if you're innocent and getting railroaded, if you're innocent and getting set up, if the story is messy enough, it doesn't matter. And if you're guilty and lying about getting set up, you can keep your job if the public doesn't care so much. That's what makes this such a fascinating story. It's not about Shannon's innocent or guilt at the level of ESPN I'm talking about. It's about this bigger thing. Now, Shannon Sharpe has handled this story in a way that I found a little confusing. I'm not implying that he's innocent. I'm not implying that he's guilty. I'm being quite literal when I say I don't understand the move he's making. According to so the first thing that happens is the woman makes the allegation. Shannon Sharpe comes out and denies it, and he points out the fact that Tony Busby is the attorney for the woman. Now, this is interesting. If you don't know who Tony Busby is, he was the lawyer who represented the woman who accused another Jane Doe, who accused Jay-Z and Diddy of a sexual act of sexual violence. Based on all the information we have right now, based on the woman's own actions and statements, and based on third-party investigations, it's very clear that the allegation against Jay-Z at the very least was not real, was not true. It was false. And what Jay-Z said throughout the entire time was that Tony Busby was a bottom feeder, that Tony Busby was somebody who intentionally tries to shake people down. Based on everything I know, and again, I've never met Tony Busby, I've never had any legal dealings with him, but based on the people who I've spoken to, that's a fairly accurate assessment of Tony Busby. Tony Busby is a kind of bottom feeding lawyer who tends to play on racial anxieties and celebrity power. And so with that in mind, a lot of people immediately said, well, shit, if it's Shannon Sharpe saying that Tony, if it's Shannon Sharpe who's on the chopping block and it's Tony Busby who's leading the person there, then I don't believe it. This is a shakedown. This is false. I stand with Shannon. And a lot of people immediately stood with Shannon Sharpe. And I actually thought, this is my perspective, Shannon Sharpe don't need my help, my advice, or anything else. But I thought, if you're innocent, and I'm not being shady or implying that he's not. I'm saying, if one is innocent and Tony Busby is the person accusing you of something, just stand on that. Enough people are skeptical of Tony Busby, and if Tony Busby is lying or the client is lying, then it'll come out in the wash. Just do nothing. Sometimes when you're in a media controversy, the hardest thing you can do is do nothing because you want to control it. You want to say something. You want to do something here. But immediately people say, oh, this is a money grab. Then some more information comes out. Now, this information comes out from Shannon Sharpe. Shannon Sharpe said, I'm going to release some information about this woman so that how can I put it? I'm going to release some information so that people know who this woman really is. And so Shannon Sharpe on Tuesday, I believe it was Tuesday, released information of the woman talking about their relationship, having sexual banter. The woman allegedly wrote, I know you miss this big juicy ass, $25,000 for each cheek, asking him to put a baby inside, a big black baby inside of her, I believe is what she was said there. But I don't want to get into the raunchiness of it, but just a lot of things he released to make a claim about who the woman was and what their nature of their relationship was. I thought that this was interesting. This move, in terms of just the public relations piece of it, again, I don't know who's innocent. I don't know who's guilty here. Putting that information out absolutely made it clear that they had a relationship and a sexual one and an active one and a complicated one and one that included various types of violence, right? The choking, the all this stuff, right? The dog collar, all this stuff, the handcuffs, allegedly she wrote, it's okay, I have handcuffs, we can stick to those for now. She said she wanted him to tie her up. I want you to put a dog collar around my neck and choke me with it while you're fucking me. These are all things. I want to be abused, she wrote on March 14th, allegedly. So all of these comments Shannon's team releases to sort of demonstrate the nature of the relationship and the nature of their sexual relationship. I understand why he did that. He was trying to show, hey, we have a thing here and nothing I did was inconsistent with that thing. Here's the problem with that. One, that can backfire, but let me get to the bigger issue first. And we need to say this. I want to say this clearly and unequivocally. Just because that woman, the Jane Doe, has engaged in sex with Shannon Sharpe, even if she had sex with him 365 days in a row, if on day 366 she doesn't want to, it doesn't matter what happened the day before. The consent is necessary. Just because the woman wants to be choked or tied up or beaten or whatever in a consensual sexual act doesn't mean that she's now compromising or relinquishing her right to say no. Even if she voluntarily agreed to do the things that she's accusing him of doing to her, but decided she didn't want to do them on the day that she's accusing him of. In other words, if she wanted to get tied up Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and on Thursday she doesn't want to get tied up, then you can't tie her up. So we need to set that table, because I think putting out a video that almost suggests that her being quote unquote freaky is exculpatory for Shannon Sharpe, I think is irresponsible, particularly in the context of rape culture. So we want to be very clear about that. Then more information comes out, because, you know, even though she's Jane Doe, people started Googling and finding. Pictures of the woman came out. More of the story comes out. Two things happen. One, people find out she ain't black. The black community, many people were like, well, you're on your own. That's what you get for playing them away games. That's how people felt. Other people looked at the age difference. She was 19 when they met, and he was in his 50s. I believe he's 54, but let me just double check that, because I don't want to give you wrong information. I have a duty to not give you wrong information. He's 50, yeah, 54. So 54 and 19, to me, is gross. It's legal. In some cultures, it's probably normal. Among rich white men, it's definitely normal. I'm just saying I can't imagine that. But that doesn't mean he committed a crime. And it also doesn't mean that she's a gold digger, or that she's lying, at least, or at the very least, it doesn't mean that she's lying about what happened. Now, a woman saying, please put a baby in me, please put your quote unquote baby gravy in me, she's asking for unprotected sex, and for him not to pull out in that context, I think it does complicate the story, at least, and it's a feather in Shannon's cap, his legal cap, that is, not a moral cap, just his legal cap, to the extent that her claim is he's trying to have unprotected sex with me and I didn't want that. And he's like, look, you keep asking me to have unprotected sex with you. Now, again, it doesn't matter if she asked for unprotected sex 1,000 times. It doesn't even matter if she asked in that moment. If she says no or stop or don't do that, that's all that matters. So she doesn't lose her right to consent. We have to say that repeatedly, on and 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 on, over and over again. But we're talking about the court of public opinion right now. We're talking about the court of public opinion right now. For some people, the age gap made people say, you know what? We still think she's lying, and we still think he was set up. But you know what, Shannon, if your 54-year-old ass is sleeping with 19-year-old white girls or whatever she is, we're not riding for you. We got limited resources, and we ain't riding on this one. This is part of the conversation that people are having. So I think maybe at that moment, Shannon wasn't thinking about ESPN. He was thinking about his bigger career and his bigger paydays. And like, look, putting out racy sexual texts does not help you keep a Disney job, but it may keep your ass from having to pay $50 million. Now, the other side of this is Shannon may release it because he knew she was going to release stuff. And so he wanted to control how it released. All of it is possible. I don't claim to know Shannon Sharpe's legal strategy. Before we go, I will tell you what I actually think, but this is all complicated. "19. It's really young. And I think a lot of people were grossed out and turned off by that. Other people said, look, if a 19-year-old is begging a 58-year-old, 54-year-old rich man to get her pregnant, the play is clear here. The way she's talking on the phone to him, it was clearly somebody who's recording the call, someone who's trying to establish fact patterns and articulate things in text and voice so that later on they could be used in court. A lot of people said, we saw that game coming a mile away. Could be true. Could absolutely be true. But it doesn't mean she wasn't assaulted. But it also doesn't mean that she was. I'll be honest with you. And this is, and some of y'all are going to be happy with what I say, some of y'all aren't. But I begin from a place of believing victims. I come from a place of believing accusers, unless something happens that changes that. In this case, Tony Busby being her lawyer did do that to me. I'm not saying she's lying. I'm saying if any lawyer other than Tony Busby were representing her, I wouldn't think twice about sort of giving her the benefit of the doubt, even though through the legal system, Shannon, I believe in Shannon's right to, if it were a criminal trial, innocence to proving guilt beyond all reasonable doubt, or in a civil trial by preponderance of the evidence, I'd be okay with that. But in this case, Tony Busby, who is a known sleazeball, who is a known bottom feeder, when I see Tony Busby's name, I assume that anybody who gets him to be the lawyer is looking for a payday and is not particularly interested in what's true and what's not true. So I do begin from places saying, I don't know. I'm doubtful of Tony Busby and his intentions. Same thing with Jay-Z. I don't know Jay-Z well enough to know what he would do. I don't know anybody, none of these people well enough to know what they would do, but I do know this lawyer well enough to know. And so by the middle of the week, Shannon Sharpe has had to reveal parts of his sex life, private texts that he made, comments he made about other celebrities, other athletes, which should be his right to do, a private conversation. They were leaked. You can see very clearly that they're trying to embarrass him, that they're trying to, I won't say shake him down, but they're certainly trying to apply pressure to get him to cave. But then Shannon Sharpe's team did something else that I didn't understand. Again, maybe there's a reason for it. But I read this article, and there's a million versions of it, but on Tuesday, attorney Lanny Davis disclosed during a media conference call that Hall of Fame tight end and media personality Shannon Sharpe offered at least $10 million to settle the claims made by the woman who sued Sharpe for sexual assault the other day. So there's a couple ways to think about this. Typically, people like Tony Busby go to you behind the scenes and they shake you down for $500,000 or $1 million. And the premise is not that the person is guilty necessarily, but that they don't want the public attention. And so the person comes and says, hey, I got an allegation against you. If you just pay me X, Y, and Z, it'll never make the light of day. And you sign some paperwork. That was the hope. That was the hope. But Shannon said no. Now, what's interesting is, again, according to news reports and according to Shannon Sharpe's own attorney, because again, I think that's important to note. This isn't speculation. Shannon Sharpe, according to his team, shared that they offered a lot of money to get her to settle. Like a lot of money. So when they don't, you got to ask why. Let me be more specific. On Tuesday, Shannon Sharpe's own attorney said that they offered the accuser, Jane Doe, $10 million to settle before she filed the lawsuit. And Jane Doe said no. Now, I can't wrap my mind around this from either person's perspective. If you're Shannon and you're innocent, maybe you just spend the 10 million to get it to go away, but 10 million is a lot of money. But Shannon Sharpe was looking at a potential, reportedly, $100 million deal. So I guess if you're staring at down the barrel of 100 million, you'll sacrifice 10 or 20. But I got to tell you, as the outsider, Jay-Z didn't offer one red cent, and Jay-Z had a lot more to lose than Shannon Sharpe in some ways. Super Bowl, etc. But I don't know. There's something about him offering $10 million that is alarming. He reportedly offered it, and he told us that he offered it. Why does he want us to know that? Does he think that offering someone $10 million is a sign of innocence or not non-guilt? Or is he trying to say, hey, this plaintiff is so irrational that even when I offered her $10 million, she said no? Because what I'm thinking is, even if I believe everything Jane Doe says, let's assume everything she's saying is true. Let's assume everything Shannon is saying in response is true as well, except for the parts that conflict. Basically, that we have all the information we need. Even if everything this woman said, if everything Jane Doe said was proved accurate, and we strapped into a lie detector test and we did some of our own investigation, and we found out everything she said is true, I still don't know if it's worth $50 million in the eyes of a jury. $10 million is closer to the number that I think they'd want. Now, there's no number, there's no amount that can justify, excuse, or heal sexual violence, the violence of sexual assault. So I'm not, but I'm just trying to think through Shannon's mind. Like, is it like, if this goes public, I don't get the $100 million deal because of all the bad PR. So it's better for me to, was it an ounce of prevention beats a pound of cure? That idea. It's possible. I can't get why you would want people to know that you offered this woman $10 million. Unless they were going to find out inevitably anyway, and you wanted to be in control of the narrative. Maybe that's the only thing I can think of. At the end of the day, Shannon released information. Shannon released settlement agreement, settlement terms, etc. I don't know. This is messy and complicated. I am not, and I want to be clear here before we go. I'm not implying that Shannon is guilty. I'm not doing that. And I'm also not implying that Shannon is completely innocent. I don't know what happened between them. It's complicated, it's long, and it's messy. But what I can say is the moves that he's making, the truth behind the moves he's making is, one, I don't think they're consistent with internally consistent. I think that he's making moves that allow him to sort of present himself this way, and then he's doing the opposite, right? So if you're playing yourself as an innocent victim here, I think you got to just say you didn't do it and step back and wait. When you say you offered $10 million, now you could be saying, look, she's irrational. No one will give you more than that. A jury's not giving you more than $10 million for what you described. I mean, all of it. I don't know their strategy, but I pray that there is one. My fear, I don't know this to be true, but my fear is that ESPN has no intention of letting him return. Remember when Ime Udoka took the 1 year leave of absence from the Boston Celtics? We knew his black ass wasn't coming back, but that's how they framed it. This feels a little bit like that. I'm not hoping that's what happens. I'm hoping that justice prevails everywhere, but it feels like that a little bit, and that concerns me. So we'll see. What up, Aaron? We'll see what the answer is. We'll see what the truth is at some point. We'll get to the bottom of this, but right now, Shannon Sharpe is gone from ESPN, at least temporarily. This lawsuit is picking up on Shannon Sharpe. I suspect it won't make it to trial and it'll get thrown out, or there'll be a private settlement, but enough damage has been done to compromise some things. So I'm hoping people will move through this situation quickly. I'm hoping that justice will prevail. I'm hoping that people get healed. I'm hoping that the right person is protected and the perpetrator is held accountable in all the ways that we have. I mean, I want all of that to happen, sincerely. But my God, this is a mess. My God, this is a mess. And it's, again, there's an argument that if you don't date a 19-year-old at 54, none of this bullshit happens. That's probably true. But he has a right to do that, and it's not illegal. And so I don't want us to conflate our moral objections or criticisms, if we have any, with the legal dimensions of all this. So anyway, that's a long-winded way of saying this is messy, this is complicated. I don't know how this ends, but I do know that people are deeply invested in this. Some people are deeply invested because they want to prove a rape accuser wrong, which is part of rape culture, where we default to say that they're lying. We default to pointing out the cases where someone hasn't told the whole truth, to ignore the thousands where people do. We got to be mindful of that. We got to be mindful of all the ways this is being talked about. Of course, Diddy's trial is coming up in a couple of weeks. So, there's a lot of interesting, complicated dialogues that we're going to have as community members about SV. So anyway, I want to thank y'all for talking about this. I'll keep you posted. If Shannon Sharpe comes back before the fall, we'll know. If he just stays on Club Shay Shay and bodies it, we'll certainly know. Again, wishing everybody justice, wishing everybody proper accountability, wishing everybody healthy healing, want everybody to win, everybody to win. I'll see y'all tomorrow. Oh no, I won't, but I'll see y'all soon. Same bad time, same bad channel. Peace.